You are listening to the Tipped Out Podcast with your hosts Danny Christy from Danny Christy Golf and Brandon Palmer from Balance Performance. In today's episode, we have a fellow Delhi alum, James Lichtenberger, join the show. James is a PGA professional and is currently the first assistant at Engineers Country Club on Long Island, where he spends a great deal of his time giving lessons. As a result, he is an experienced instructor and excellent teacher of the game. We were fortunate to meet James and listen to his presentation at a teaching summit while we were students at Delhi a few years ago. Since then, he has been a great source of information and guidance to us as we begin our journeys in the golf industry. If you are looking to improve your golf game or curious about the golf industry, this is a great listen for you as we cover these topics and more. James is a great guy and we truly appreciate him joining us to share his insights. Enjoy.
All right, guys, welcome back to this episode. This is the Tipped Out Podcast here. Today's guest, we have James Lichtenberger. What's going on, James? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your Tipped Out podcast.
Of course, brother. It's great to talk to you again. I don't know, when was the last time we saw you? The Delhi Welcome Back, like
The
3 years
inaugural
ago?
teaching summit that we kind of put together. I mean, yeah, it's probably like 4 years, 3 years ago now.
Nice.
I
Crazy.
remember the teaching summit. That was a cool thing.
It really was. Yeah, I really like to see that, and we'd really like to see that again, definitely. I know the guys there at Delhi now would really get another good kick out of that. So,
Yeah, no, it's something that we all have interest in. If you're interested in being a golf pro, for sure, you want to get to know a little bit more about how to teach and not embarrass yourself. And
yeah, definitely.
oh,
So we know a little bit about you, but our listeners would love to hear a little bit about you. So if you could real quick touch on, your little bit of your background, where you come from, and then kind of how you got to where you are today.
I just grew up. I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, in a town called Bethpage. For those golfers that kind of know that town, I never really played golf until I was about like 15 years old. Like getting into it, I never really was in the competitive side of it. I just played for fun because it was in my backyard, and from there I just went into play every day, practice. I started working at the golf course, when I was a senior in high school and got really into it. And I wasn't really interested in like going to college to do anything else but play golf. But I found out the degree of professional golf management and, we pursued that a little bit. We looked at some schools and Delhi was a good choice because of it was local. It was a 3 hour drive from my house door to door. And it wasn't as far as Penn State and it wasn't as expensive as Penn State. And so it just kind of worked out good. And I'm glad I went there. I enjoyed every year I was there. The first year was definitely tough and got better as I spent more time there. And I started interning in the summer as we all have to. And I worked at town of Oyster Bay Golf Course. It was just a local muni and I started teaching on the range and I worked camps, and then I found a demo tech job on the weekend. So I worked for Mizuno. I did that for 4 straight years and 4 straight summers in a row. I loved it, and when I graduated, I needed something a little bit bigger and better, and I jumped over to Colonial Springs for 6 years. Last year, I left Colonial Springs and I moved on to Engineers Country Club. It was just time to make a change. I was there too long. I kind of outgrew the position and I'm going on my second year at Engineers this year. I'm really loving it, so it's been great.
Nice. And I think I asked you this question before, maybe like my freshman year of college. And so for our listeners that have heard some of our earliest podcasts, so Danny and I went to Delhi, and that's, of course, how we know Mr. Lichtenberger is. He was an alum from there as well. He came and did some teaching summits, the Delhi Welcome Back Scrambles. Yeah, I remember asking you, did you always know you wanted to teach when you started, whether it was going into college or even once you got there?
I would say, yeah. I mean, when I worked at the range at Bethpage, there was, I was picking balls, so I wasn't doing any teaching. But there was always this golf pro named Ron Fiella. He was like kind of a staple at Bethpage at the time, and I kind of looked up to him. And he wasn't the green country club professional. He had like a little bit of a, you know, a an edge to him, which I always liked about him. And he was like the people's pro, he was like very relatable of everyday life. And, for those who play Bethpage, it's like it's not like country club ish. People playing jeans and it's like very like welcoming. And
Mm,
I was like, that job looks pretty cool, and I kind of just went that route. I was really interested. I just loved golf. I was just such a golf like I had golf balls in my head as a kid, like
mm,
as a an older kid, and I just loved
yeah.
any chance that we got to go hit a few on the course or hit it in the range. I lived at the range in my internships at night because we had lights on it. I would go back after working like 13, 14 hours, go back to the range and
Mm,
hit balls. And, I just took to it. It just was like my zen and happy place. It was no, you don't, really think about anything when you're playing on the golf course.
yeah,
It was great for me.
yeah. Did you play on the men's Delhi team? I can't remember.
Yeah, I played for two
Yeah.
seasons. I obviously didn't make the team the first year, but I want to say we had like 60 somewhat kids try out for like three
Wow.
spots.
Wow.
Our programs were a little bit bigger than your classes than
Yeah.
they were now, but it was competitive. It was a 4-day test of golf and 36 holes, 2 of the 4 days. It was crazy, but I didn't make the first year. I made it the second year and the second and third year, and then the fourth year with the whole PGM like PA players ability test. I skipped it. There was so much else going on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good learning experience for sure. But the greatest thing about Delhi, as is you don't have to be on the team to find a group to play with or to go play the golf course anytime you want.
Definitely.
I remember just speaking from experience. It was cool playing that tryout at Delhi. It was really the first like 4-day event I played in, which was kind of
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just thought there
Mine
was
too.
definitely a little more pressure there, but it was a cool experience for sure.
The funny part, did you feel this as well? For me, I don't know whether it's coming from hockey or maybe I was just young and foolish, but there was such like a chip on my shoulder when we were playing those rounds. I just remember looking at all the other guys and just wanting to beat them so bad and like not liking a lot of them. And I mean, we didn't know them yet, right? It was the first couple of weeks
that's a
of
good point. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
I felt like the opposite. I didn't have really chip. Like everybody feels like they're the big fish in their small pond at home. Like I'm the best player on my high school team. Like there's no way I'm not making the team.
yeah,
These guys
Then
are
you
done.
then you go out and you see what you can produce, and you're like, Jesus. I mean, I'm not that good. You know,
Yeah.
which is I think as a human being, that's like everybody goes through that, no matter what you do for a living. You think you know all of this stuff, and nobody can tell you what to do, and then it's funny, like you said, you go in there and you don't like anybody. You have this like
yeah,
right away. You're like, I'm like, who's this guy? You
hmm
find things that you don't like about them, and I think that's just a jock male thing. We do that. I think every sport does that.
yeah,
Your
Definitely.
competitive juices are flowing. But then the
yeah,
coolest part about it is you really get to know the people. And like I could say right now that my freshman year of college, like nobody liked each other. You
yeah,
might have had like one friend. You find that one guy that you like connect with and play golf with, and then by the time we graduated, like, oh my God, we were all friends. Like we had
yeah,
such chemistry with each other, which you can relate to, I'm sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. We definitely didn't like each other in high school.
Mm. No, yeah, Danny and I played head to head against each other many times, and I can count on one hand the amount of times I beat him in high school. It was a almost a one sided rivalry. But yeah, it's always nice to have people that push you and just kind of get you to that next level, and that's really what the team became for us was just us competing against each other, and that it felt really cool because we'd go out there and try and
Yeah.
beat each other in the course, and it'd work out well, and we ended up winning a good amount of things in tournaments, and it was a
No,
great
it's
time
cool.
looking back.
Let's jump back in, and I got another question for you.
Sure.
What does your typical day look like, and what are your current goals?
Oh my God. My typical day, man, you need a couple Red Bulls in you. No, but the caffeine and concentration. My typical day, I mean, it's changed throughout the years for sure. I mean, today, my typical day is I go to work probably too early for when I should be there because I love going to work. Um, I kind of settle in, I have my schedule predetermined weekly. I'm like kind of like a doctor on the schedule side of things. I make sure everything is booked in advance. I'm not a last minute guy, which I'm sure my members don't love about me. Sometimes somebody wants to grab me for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, I don't have 20 minutes, sorry. But so that's why I get there extra early, just in case if somebody has a question or something. But I'll go in. I usually teach. I mean, I try to do 4 hours in a row when I get there. I mean, 4 hours is like my maximum concentration level. And then I usually take like an hour break, and then I'll finish with 4 to 5 on the back end of the day. Now, it's not all teaching. Some of it could be fitting, or some of it could be, like, oh, I just want to see my numbers on TrackMan, or some of it's like, hey, James, can I hit this on the TrackMan? I want to see what this does. But it's predetermined. It's booked. My lunch break usually consists of me ordering golf clubs or answering some phones while I'm eating my lunch. So it depends. Day to day changes. That's why I love what I do. But usually, on the weekends it could be 8 to 10 hours a day in lessons, and during the week it could be a 4 hour lesson day with like a bunch of like tournament stuff I got to get ready for an upcoming week, or you name it, I do it. And my current goals, my God, my current goal is definitely to be a head professional. I would definitely want to be one. This whole lesson thing is awesome, but I don't think you could do this forever. It's exhausting. I just love being around the membership. I love the camaraderie between the professional staff and the members. You become like a part of their family. You get to know their kids, their wives, their everything about them. What colors they like, what bags they like, what clubs they don't like. And you really you take it like as they become like your friends, and that's what makes it so hard to move on to a different club, is because you get so attached to the people that you work with, and it doesn't become like doesn't become work. It becomes like, oh, let me go in early and let me see, like, Jack, he's my best friend. I want to catch up with him, see how he's doing. Let me watch his game. So my current goal is definitely to be a head pro. I mean, not yet. I love what I do. Director of instruction, I always wanted to do that, but at the same time, I want to be a well-rounded individual in the golf field, and I feel like I am well-rounded to begin with, and I'm going to become even more well-rounded. And I don't want to focus my energy completely into something. I want to focus it into a little bit of everything. I love the merch side of it. I love the club side of it. I love the travel pro-am side of it. Like, just every bit of it. The tournament side of it, I don't love. I've learned to love it a little bit. It's not my favorite part, but in any job, there's always something that you don't like to do. It depends on your boss. I mean, obviously, your boss is definitely key. It makes your job a lot more fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my goal.
Nice. Well, I have two questions or two pieces to that. So the first part, when you were talking about your day to day, you said you go in early in case people, as golf professionals, we get pulled in a lot of directions, right? And so,
Yeah.
were you always able to kind of be your own boss in a way of having structure and being able to tell somebody, no, I don't have time? Were you always that way, or is that only kind of in the recent years you've been able to kind of
I
choose when you have
yeah.
time?
I mean, it's not about choosing that you don't have time. It's just that you don't have time. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I am always there to talk to somebody if they have a moment, even if I have to wait 5 minutes. Like, my 1 o'clock's here, and this guy needs me for like 5 minutes. I'm more than happy to talk to him for 5 minutes and maybe be 5 minutes late to my lesson. That happens all the time. I walk down a hallway at the club. You walk down a hallway and somebody's going to grab you with something, whether I'm going to the bathroom just for a break, and then they're like, "Hey, James." But I think that's what I love about it. I mean, as weird as that sounds, I think like you feel like a celebrity at the club. You
Yeah,
really do. You really do. You really feel like, I'm like on a one name basis. I'm like Madonna, like
yeah, yeah,
James. Like, so yeah, it gets annoying at the same time because you're busy and you got to catch up to something else. But
yeah.
yeah, I love it.
Any members named James got to go. There's only one
Yeah,
James.
There's no Jameses at the club. I mean, like yesterday was our opening day, and the range and our putting green are situated in the same spot, and like I got finished up at like I want to say 5 ish, and like I'm shot. I mean I'm dead. Like 5 o'clock, I'm shot. I got there at 8. I mean, I had 7 in a row yesterday, and
Oh,
and then like what I'm taking my TrackMan down and my bags back with toys and putting it on the carts, and like everybody's screaming my name in every direction. Like, you got 5 minutes, take a look. What did you do here? I'm like, we just opened, guys. Like, relax. Like, I have the whole season ahead of us.
yeah.
But the
That's
excitement. The excitement that we have, like opening day, like we can go play golf again. Like, it's so exciting, which I love about it.
definitely. That's the perfect little segue into my second and final question with that piece is you kind of answered it a little bit, but have you always worked at a member facility or have you had the chance to teach more
Like,
public or resort? Like, I'm just curious,
yeah,
do you
my resume
you
is pretty.
love that stuff?
I mean, I've done everything. I worked at Bethpage. I worked on the pro shop side, on the range side, outside, offside. Bethpage doesn't really have a membership side to it. I worked at another Muni, a little bit of a higher end Muni, like $150 to play around. So that was like a little bit more clubby, meaning like you'd see the same people. I've worked at a resort private in Florida at the Polo Club of Boca Raton. That was ridiculous. That was like 700. Sorry, excuse me. Like, I want to say more than 700. There was 1,800 residents on property, so
Wow.
pretty much most of them were golf members. It was like more of a number there. I mean, I did some teaching there, not really private instruction. I was more of like a seasonal assistant, and then I worked at Colonial, which was privately owned, but it was member driven. And then now I'm at a privately owned Club Corp facility, which is it was a member. My club I work at now was a member owned club, but now it's owned by Club Corp.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I got a little bit of everything.
question out of your last answer. You talked about how you want to become well rounded. Currently, you're in a director of instruction role. Is that was there a time where you thought maybe you wanted your main focus to be instruction, and then
Well,
after doing it for a while, you decided not to, or
well, I'm currently in a first assistant position, not a director of instruction. I feel like a director of instruction
okay,
because that's all I do. I definitely do a lot of this stuff, but life changes. Like every 5 years for us. You have doubts and you have fears, and you don't really know what direction you should go in, and it changes. I mean, when I first set out on my journey, I definitely wanted to be a head pro. Like, that was definitely what I wanted to do. But I always looked at a head pro as like he did everything. Like, he was able to do teaching. I never thought like of like all I want to do is teach. A first assistant position in New York is mainly teaching because we really not every club has a director of instruction. We don't have that hierarchy of employees. It's more like a director of golf or a head pro and then assistants and then maybe a teaching assistant. But I'd go anyway as long as I'm in the golf field. Maybe I don't want to be a ranger for life or a caddy for life. But yeah, I mean, I'll go in any which direction if the right opportunity was at the right time.
Definitely. I like that. I like that.
so do you want to talk a little bit about club fitting? Just how kind of how much club fitting you do, and what kind of a typical process for a fitting would be? Because Palmer and I definitely aren't well versed in that and not very experienced in that area. So.
No, club fitting. I mean, I did like 3 club fittings today. We've been killing the sales this year because of the supply chain. So I'm forcing everybody. I'm like, buy it now. So we've been doing quite the amount of club fitting. Um, you know, I think the most important thing in club fitting is the educational standpoint to the person that you're selling the club to. If I'm given a lesson and I see what they have and know I've seen so many golf swings and so many good swings and bad swings, if I know like that they're putting a good swing on the golf ball and they're not really getting their max out of it, I know when to throw that in. Like, I think you need new clubs, but now with the technology, it's so easy. We have all the fit carts at work. Um, I think the first place to start with a club fitting is just assess what the student wants. Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for distance? Are you looking for? Obviously, everybody's going to tell you they're looking for distance. Very rarely do you get a kid coming to you that swings 120 miles an hour with the driver, but it does happen. And sometimes, for that kid, maybe he's playing those rogue irons that go, his 7 iron goes 200 yards. And you're like, dude, you need new clubs. And he's like, well, I'm hitting my 7 iron 200 yards. I'm like, well, that's not really what a good player does all the time. Meaning, like, you're not always looking for distance. You might need to curve it, or you might need to stop it. So I think finding out what they want, always the first stop. And then the second stop is, putting them on some sort of launch monitor. Just get them aware. Like, I'll put a club, even in my lessons where they aren't interested in clubs. I'm like, how about we just try this shaft? Or how about we just try this lighter weight graphite shaft? You're playing steel shaft. So, and then, I think, just like I said, educating them will open their eyes a little bit more to what they need, and then the segue in with club fitting is you got to kind of understand their mistakes. How many golfers we work with that come in with the handle really high, toe down, and like, oh, you can bend a club. And they're like, what? You can bend a club? I'm like, yeah, you can bend the head up. And you kind of show them what that means. Or, how many students you have that hit it thin. You're like, maybe we'll give you a half an inch of length to your shaft. Maybe that will help you out a little bit. Or your grips are way too freaking small. Or your grips are way too big. I'm hooking it like crazy. I'm like, well, your hands don't fit your grips, so maybe we need mid-sized grips. So, like, I think that just educating them that way, and then going into a regular club fitting is so easy. You kind of have an idea what they need. I usually start off with the worst possible option, but an option. I know it's not going to work, but let's try it. And then I usually start off with one head, and then I go through like 5 or 6 different shafts that I know that they need. I looked at the numbers. I don't really tell them anything. I just ask them to hit shots. I ask them how it feels. They tell me it feels good. Is it heavy? Is it light? How many times I give somebody a lighter shaft and they tell me it feels heavier. I'm like, well, you're feeling the head weight, and so. And then basically, when I find the right shaft combination for them, I'll be like, oh, let's go. Let's go. I would say, let's go shopping. Let's go head shopping. So we try all the different heads on, maybe 2 or 3 of their final shafts that they got out of the 10 shafts. And then when we hone them in, I think fittings to me take less than an hour. I mean, within 30 minutes, if you know them. If you don't know them, maybe you need 45 minutes, but within 30 minutes, you'll have an idea what they need. But club fitting is so big in our game because everything is so custom now.
Yeah. And
Even
you
for
said you got your start with Mizuno club fitting?
Yeah, I worked with Mizuno as a demo tech rep, as demo days. It was an awesome segue into my universe of private clubs because that's where I went. I fit private members, and at the time they released something called the Shaft Optimizer, which was pretty damn cool. It was like a kind of like a tumor on a club shaft, and it told you like these numbers, and you plug these numbers into an iPad or computer, or it was a cell phone at the time, and it would tell you like 3 possible shafts that would work. I measured it by like the kick of the shaft, the way the toe came down on it. They still have it. They made it better than it is now, but that was like a really easy way to pick the shafts out without using a launch monitor. You have them take 5 swings with this shaft, and you take the numbers. And they trained me. They sent me to Norcross, Georgia, and I went to the factory. And they were very well known for their 3-day turnover times and getting clubs out. It's a little different now. Now you wait sometimes 6 months for a set of clubs, depending on the shaft or the grip or yeah, but that was a great way introduction. And I made so many mistakes, and you just don't know. You got to make mistakes to get better. There's nothing wrong with that. And the members, they buy so many sets of clubs in their lifetime that maybe they'll find a set that works, up here at least. But so many people have the wrong bounces and their wedges. And, I had a guy today, for instance, he's like, I hit every one of my wedges fat. I'm like, okay, let me see your wedge. So I look at his wedge and he's got like 8 degrees of bounce. And I'm like, dude, you have no bounce. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I give him like a 14 degrees and he's like, oh my God, I can't hit this fat. And I think they're just depending on where you work. I worked at Colonial Springs. Colonial Springs was probably one of the best memberships I worked for, meaning is in golfers. They were good golfers. They were really good. They were competitive. A lot of them hit it as far as I did. It was embarrassing. And then, and they would shoot, if they had a short games, they probably could shoot what I shot. They just didn't have their, short games. But now I'm at engineers and these guys are a little bit more blind to what maybe they should have, or they never really had a pro that was able to spend time with them on TrackMan. So just giving the service, that's all I'm trying to do. Just showing, educating. That's so important.
Yeah. So if for our listeners, if they don't have an awesome professional around like yourself, what's the best way for them to kind of learn a little ins and outs of fitting so that they can kind of just not be so blind to the topic? Would you say like YouTube, or is there books, or maybe even go to like a fitting course?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays I think it's so easy to find to book a fitting. Like finding a PGA Professional is pretty easy too with all the website stuff. But you can find a fitting. Club Champion has great fits, and maybe I don't believe in their price structure. How crazy expensive things could be, but again, everybody's trying to make money, and it's a business. But yeah, YouTube's good. I think YouTube is good and bad. Like,
Mm,
I don't believe in all this stuff I see.
right.
Again, it's so general. Like everything you show on YouTube is obviously content. Like, just it could be good content, it could be bad content. There's a lot of bad content out there, and there's a lot of good content out there. But the person who's looking into it is just trying to fix what they're doing wrong. So, like, if you got a guy who's chunking a wedge, he's going to go on YouTube and be like, "How do I chip?" And
Yeah.
then maybe not even look up that bounce video, or like. But I think the companies are getting really good with like educating people with
Yep.
commercials, and like and all these like pros going to hit all the clubs. Like, I think Max Homa did this thing with Titleist, and he hit like every club, the T100, the T200, T300, and you saw the difference in his numbers, one with the same swing, and how different these clubs are for him, or shafts. So, I mean, I really do recommend that you definitely go to some sort of specialty fitter. Just if you're really into the game and you're going to spend that much time doing what we all love to do, definitely spend
Yep.
some time and do it right.
And how about one step further? What about for young up and coming professionals like ourselves that want to get a little more knowledge and we don't really want to trust the possibilities of the YouTube not being as intricate as we'd like? Is there a certain brand or company that you'd recommend to go to that we could either be certified in or that have some information?
There's all universities online now. Callaway has Callaway will send us Callaway University, and you can go online and get certified. And Titleist has their Titleist university with balls, and what each ball does and club does, and all these companies have avenues to become better,
Yep.
without a doubt. You could you and also I think the best thing is just trial. Just take it out yourself. Take it out yourself. Mess around like with a stiff shaft and a regular shaft. See what it does. What does an extra stiff shaft do?
Yep.
But once you get into it, you kind of know what the colors on the shaft mean: high, low, in the middle. Net Callaway's fit card, they like label everything like mid trajectory, low trajectory. So you can really you go into it somewhat blind, but do it
Mhm.
to yourself. Fit yourself. Best way to do it.
Perfect. Perfect.
Sweet.
Anything more with fitting?
Yeah, I just want to kind of ask: is fitting something? Well, I'll just leave it a little more about how do you, with a typical student, do you combine fitting and instruction slash education, as well as maybe fitness into a lesson, or you know?
Fitness is definitely, I mean, the better golfers are definitely more into fitness than the 20 somewhat handicappers.
Yeah.
It depends on, you got to know your audience. You got to know their budget. Budget plays a huge factor. We're not cheap anymore. It's not like 5 lessons for $200. It's 5 lessons for almost, close to 1,000 in some cases for certain people. So, the fitness, I think screening the body is super important. Like, I know, Danny, I know you're into like Mike Adams and all that stuff and how the body works. And I think that's important, for sure. But you got to also, again, if you know your audience and if you're in a lesson with somebody who physically can't make a move, you got to come up with something on the fly. You got to just go with it. Some of the things that I catch saying to my 10 o'clock lesson, I would shoot myself if I should said it to my 11 o'clock lesson. But you got to know every time you teach somebody, you're teaching 4 people, because they're going to go out and tell their threesome that, oh, James told me to try this with my wedge. And then they're all going to try it. And then they're going to go, that sucks. That doesn't work. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But again, everybody's so different. The body, fitness wise, I think most people just have to get off their desk and just move. It's pretty easy. I don't think it's like, you don't have to be tired. Just get up and move. And people don't move.
That's so true.
That's really it. I mean, fitness wise.
Yeah.
Awesome. I was just curious to see how, because
Yeah.
I've been waffling back and forth, and you see, you hear a lot of things. And
Well,
just
you guys are super ahead of where you should be. You know what I'm saying? You guys are really educated in what you guys want to do in your careers. And I think that's awesome. And I wasn't like that. Absolutely not. I obviously wanted to be good. I mean, I just wasn't, you guys speak to so many different people, and Brendan, you work at a facility with these top teachers, and Danny, you're reading all these body mechanics stuff, and you just got to take what you want from it and what works. And I'm a big hands guy. I feel like everybody can do something with their hands. It they might not be able to do it every time, but I think you got to find something that relates to them. I mean, I tell people all the time, my biggest thing with chipping, I always tell everybody, go, what do they say when you hit a nice chip on the ring? Your foursome says, they say nice touch. They don't say nice turn. I say, you got to use your hands. You can't just use your whole body all the time. So you got to connect with them and make it like very, and have them see these like ways that you could teach and what they could take and pull from it.
Yeah. And so with that being said, do you have a teaching philosophy, or are you for lack of better words, a method teacher, or are you pretty individualistic?
Yeah, I'm just James Lichtenberger, man. I don't have no methods. I mean, I
Love
just
that.
go with the flow. I mean, like I said, what I say to my 10 is not going to be what I say to my 11. In some cases, it is. You never know who you're working with. I mean, the first question that's so important to me is if you have any injuries, because like right away. And then I have a philosophy about body types. You get a skinny, like thin, lanky kid, and you get a big, heavy guy who can't move. So you got to be able to, again, find something what they're right away. The first thing, instead of looking what I see wrong, I look at what I see them doing well.
Mm.
I'm like, wow, this guy's got fast hands, or this guy's hands don't move at all, or this guy's 6'8" and he swings at 100 miles an hour. And you're like, this kid probably swinging 150 miles an hour, and you just think to yourself, and like you're like, well, what's not working now? Like, so what they're doing this well, but this guy's not hitting it that far. This guy's hitting it left. This guy's hitting it right, and you just try to find what they're doing really well, and then I just try to improve what they're doing well. I mean, instead of trying, and then sprinkle in and you got to know your students like longevity. Is he going to be with you the whole year? Is he going to spend all this money to get better, or is this guy just looking for a band-aid? Is he looking? And I tell them that. I say, are you a band-aid guy? You want a band-aid? Are you going to go play today and you want to play good, or do you want to like actually fix this? And they'll be like, I need a band-aid now, but I do want to fix it. So I'll be like, well, all right, I'm going to show you something now. It's going to hopefully work. Might not, but then we got to fix it, and
Yeah.
then we go from there.
It'll work for 14 holes today. And
Right. Yeah. They're like, yeah, I played, hit the driver good in the first 4 holes, and then it went away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're also, as much as they love you, they can hate you. like you suck, like you screwed me all up,
Yeah.
and I used to take that to heart. I really did. I felt terrible. Like I was like, oh my god, this guy. Like 3 guys came in today, give 3 lessons, they all play bad. It happens. You're not. I tell them, I'm like, I'm not magic. I know what you're doing wrong. You got to work on it.
Yeah. That's so true, man. I mean, I see that day in and day out. Danny just had this. He and I just had this talk. I just came back from a tournament with some of our junior students down in Palm Beach. I mean, man, we work on things day in and day out. I mean, this is a year-round, every single day, 6 days a week academy, and they're junior golfers, right? I mean, they go right back to their old habits. They make the same mistakes. We do post round analysis. I mean, it's very in depth, and still they make mistakes. And of course, our instruction is correct, or everyone makes mistakes, but it's always with good intentions. It's just very difficult sometimes to kind of not put that weight on yourself and just kind of let it be known that it is a long process and they're just juniors, or it could be anybody, but that is a tough concept.
Yeah, no, Danny, have you had any experience in your time with like stuff like that where people struggle?
Oh, so I was just gonna say, I think that's my biggest like. It's what pushes me so much to want to be able to give great lessons to everybody, because like as great as it feels to see someone super happy with helping them and both people feel great, I feel just as bad when I'm like, geez, why can't I help this person? So
Sometimes you got to just kick them in the butt too. Like like I have guys that like I see him hit balls in the range, and I'm like, why are you at 16? Like what are you doing? You got to be the not a teacher is so much more than good instruction. It's a good friend. It's a person that they can confide in about maybe their insecurity on the golf course. Like they're embarrassed, a lot of these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to be like welcoming to what maybe they come to you with. Sometimes they're intimidated coming up to you. Like we, I'm lucky and fortunate enough to work with not only myself at the club, but there's 2 players. Andrew Sabota, he's on the PGA Tour for 2 years, and he's now off the tour. He had some Corn Ferry status, but anyway, he's a hell of a player. He was on the tour. He played against the best people in the world, and then my other teaching pro that's there, she comes from Florida. Her name's Jean Bartholomew, and she's so talented in the golfing. And these guys know what they do on the golf course, and they do it well. And they might not be the best at telling you what they do well, and it's just they just do it. It's like an instinct for them, and that's why they are where they are. For as a member to go up to a PGA Tour player and tell them like that, like I'm shanking the ball, it could be embarrassing, And if you have that personality where you're like, well, I shank it too, like tell me your insecurity, like we'll fix it, we'll work on it, we'll do it when the range is empty, we'll do it around the corner of the range where nobody sees you. Like they're embarrassed sometimes to take a lesson, and then I always make it a point that I teach on a private area on the range, because a lot of people don't want to be seen taking a lesson.
Yeah.
It's amongst their friends. They're like, well, I keep getting shit from my friends that they tell me I'm taking lessons. I still stink, so they want to take them in private. Like, is there anywhere I could do it on the golf course, or do it away from people? So, it's intimidating for a student, but teacher is so much more than just good lessons, for sure.
Yeah, that's why I'm most grateful for my opportunity at this academy, because it's so much more. And my boss, our director, said this is you're a golf coach, right? You're not a golf instructor, and that to me was a big difference. I mean, these kids are international students, and they're here mostly year round, and they're missing their family. They got school, they got boyfriends and girlfriends, they got all the troubles, and I just got to teach them how to hit a little ball in between all that stuff. And so that's perfect, because that's exactly where my head's at too. It's just everything besides golf, and then hopefully you can just sprinkle that in, right?
And it follows you home, and then you get the late night texts of my swing and other
Yeah.
problems that I got going on. It's a 24-hour a day job. It really is.
that's one lesson I've learned is not to give my phone. What was that?
Oh, it's
Oh,
me.
oh. I thought there was
I'm
like
home alone, man. The house is going up.
one thing I've learned, not to give your number away too early.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know what? My fiance, she's like, what are you doing? It's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, some guy needs help with his golf swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. There's a time where you got to draw that line between work and your
Right.
personal life. But being a golf pro never feels like work. It just feels like you're trying to help somebody out. But you do have to be reminded. I have a strong family at home that makes sure that I know that.
Yeah, that's good. We always need that support system. And
For sure.
right before we came on air, we were talking about the struggles of long days and then trying to, keep our sanity while we try and play or practice golf. So
Yeah.
for you, what would 3 quick tips be to a young golf professional? Usually, we're telling tips to golfers. Now, we'd like a couple tips on, professional to professional.
Get it in while you're young, for sure. Get it in while you have no other responsibilities. That was probably the biggest help for me working in Florida and playing in the winters and getting away and working on my craft. And the second, I live by this, but time management is so important. I have an email I send out every week, the Friday before the following week of my schedule, and I make sure that I have time in there to hit balls or find time to get good at my craft. And then the last thing, just listen. Like, listen to everybody. You might not like it all. Some people like to read. I hate to read. It's just not my thing. And when would I do it? Like, I don't have any time to do it. And second of all, watch YouTube and listen to what these people have to say. Like, all these top 100 instructors have great channels, and I love Mike Malaska. He's like one of my favorites.
He's a
You
goat.
know, I love Cuomo. He does that Cuomo expedition,
Yep.
and Martin, and Martin Schuck, and there's so many great people. And I think the most important thing, and I'm so lucky to be able to do it, is like going to these continuing education seminars. Like, we have a lot in the med section, winter education, where we're lucky to, host a James O, do a short game special, and we get to ask all our questions about like how we would work with somebody. And the way you guys are doing it with me, like, you're just trying to get some tidbits of maybe what you can take and your nuggets. That's your famous word, right?
Right.
So I think it's important, just get a little bit of everything from everybody. And then whatever you do, just make sure you work well with the team that you have at the club you work at or wherever you work. I think that's so important. Whether it's the restaurant staff or the guys that you're working with, just treat everybody like, you know, treat the same people who clean the toilets the same as the people that run the whole place.
Yeah. Incredible. Really appreciate that insight. How is James O? I follow him on Instagram and
Oh,
his content's really cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is cool. He answers all my DMs too, which I love.
Really.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm like, how do you do that with this guy? And he 2 days later he'll tell you how. But
Mm.
yeah, no, it's so cool. The Met section, our section, does such a great job with the education stuff and the PGA shows and teaching summits and other colleagues. I take lessons from another colleague of mine, and I love him to death. His name's 𝐁𝐫𝐚𝐲'𝐬. He works in Philadelphia. We worked a little bit together in Florida, and we just kind of, if I'm struggling, I know who I'm going to.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed to play bad.
Yeah.
Your bad day is still better than most people's good days.
True. Right. Yeah. That's very true. Speed questions. Hit him with a
Yeah,
speed
so
round.
we got our little end. We'll wrap it up. We've got three,
Sure.
we'll call it speed round questions, if you're ready.
Go for it.
All right. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone that wants to improve their golf game?
Short game. Short game. Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
have any like favorite drills or challenges or anything? I know it's a very open ended question, so feel free to kind of tuck in whatever you'd like.
God. Yeah. If you're trying to get good at your game, you got to put time in. That's number one. Second of all, if you're going to the range, you got to set up a practice station. You got to know and read your ball flights. You got to know if it's going right, if it's going left, it's going left, it's going right. I have so many people that don't know which direction they hit it in. They think it's straight and they hit it 40 yards left. So you gotta practice with a purpose. I love drills. I'm a one-handed swing kind of guy, so I right hand dominant, right hand only drills. Chipping, you can take it to the bunkers, you can take it to the full swing. Very pitch shot oriented. I like hitting a lot of pitch shots. Then they ask me, what am I gonna do when I have to hit a full shot? I'm like, you're not gonna hit one. So
I like that.
That's awesome. What is your craziest golf story?
oh my god, craziest golf story. Oh my god, I mean, I have so many. I mean, it depends on what direction you want to go in. It could be. I mean, I'm so lucky to have gone to so many pro-ams, and my teams have been pretty consistent through the years. And I've always gone with the same people to certain things, and I mean, I guess I couldn't tell some of them, but when we go away, I'm like the biggest babysitter. I got to make sure that they're all in bed and they all make their times.
We can cut anything, so go ahead and share.
Oh my God. When I was in Las Vegas, I'll never forget this story. I went to Las Vegas in like 2018, and the guys that I went with are great. The two guys that I went with are crazy as could be, and the other guy is a golf nut, and the golf nut doesn't really go out and doesn't party too hard, which I love about him. He gives me somebody to hang out with, and we went like 2 days early to the Vegas Pro-Am, and the two guys like disappeared in the evening, which I always expect of them. And I just told them, I'm like, we have a tea time tomorrow morning at this court at Rio Seca. I'm like, just be on time. We'll meet in the lobby at like 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever it was. I don't even remember. So they're like, yeah, no problem. We'll see you there. So we go to the lobby like a half an hour early. I text them. They're like, yeah, we'll be there. Then they don't show up. Like half an hour later, they're still not there. And then I'm like, where the hell could these guys be? So now it's like an hour. Now I'm getting nervous because now I'm calling. I got to change my time. So anyway, they're like, we're coming. They run down the stairs. They finally get down, and I'm like, where were you guys? And they like hid. I guess they hid their wallets and like phones in the room, and they thought they left them at the clubs they were at or something. And they called like the clubs and see if their wallet was there and their watches or who knows. And every time I go away with these guys, there's always like a little something that happens, and that's brings back some stories every year. And long story short is we get to breakfast and they break out some receipts, and like they're like, I don't know, like I think a limo took us back last night. They're talking to each other, and then they're like, oh my god, I think a limo did bring us back. And then they see like a credit card receipt for like $6,000 each, and I'm like, what the hell did you guys do? They're like, we don't even remember.
Wow.
It's
How'd
like
they play? You guys end up playing?
oh my god, they ended up taking me and my other pal who didn't go out against them two for dinner, and I think they must have knew they were gonna lose. They just like were like, yeah, we're playing you for dinner, and I was like, okay, well, where's dinner? And they're like, well, no, we're gonna go to whatever Carbone, which is like the most expensive restaurant in Las Vegas. And I was like, I'm like, yeah, sure, done. And I knew they weren't gonna make it more than like 10 holes, and they actually had us down like two. And I was getting a little scared, but then the alcohol started bleeding out of them, and then we ended up getting some free Carbone, and we went to dinner, and I won't forget it. I went to dinner, and I got this thing called Dover sole. Never even heard of it. It was like a fish fillet, and one of my members and I split it, and the other two were so like hungover that at dinner that they ended up buying like 2 bottles of wine, and the dinner bill must have been like maybe $2,000. And I think it was so funny because the guy was like, that was the most expensive dinner that I didn't eat. He was like asleep at dinner. But yeah, we've had some great times, my teams, and been so fortunate to go to Pebble Beach, and yeah, we've had some fun times.
That's
So
awesome,
it's
man.
been my crazy
Thanks.
golf stories. And in college, my clubs fell out of the back of the Bronco bus
Oh no! You gotta
onto
hear that.
main highway in Columbus, Ohio,
Oh,
and none of them broke.
There we go.
Were they fine?
They were fine. They were fine.
Those are some good sticks.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. That was pretty crazy. I've never heard of something like that happen before.
No.
What brand were they? Shout out to that brand.
Ping at the time, I think. Ping, and I think it was a G10, I-10 irons or something like that.
Some freshman didn't shut the door hard enough, man. That thing flew
Yeah,
open.
some of these clubs are on the highway. I'm like, I look back and I think,
Smart.
I think me and like another kid were the only two kids on the team that didn't have a team bag.
Hmm.
Yeah, like because we just made a team, and I was like, oh shit, that's my bag, and it was like I knew it, and that was pretty funny.
Oh,
All right, final rapid fire. What is your favorite hobby outside of golf?
Oh my god, favorite hobby outside of golf? There's not many of them. I wish I had more. I mean, I think I like to drive. Driving is a hobby, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I like to drive. I like to hike. My fiance and I spend a lot of time outdoors, and we love to like drink some wine. And drinking is always fun, but not too much. But yeah, I would say like just traveling. I love to travel. Travel's fun. Yeah.
I like that. And what
Yeah.
part of Long Island are you on again?
I live in Bethpage currently. Still, I bought a place in Bethpage, so we're like central on the island, pretty much. More like
Perfect.
30
Yeah.
miles from Manhattan.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm familiar with Dick's Hills because my girlfriend, she grew up there. So yeah, that's
Right where my old club was. Yeah,
cool.
not too far.
That all we got, brother?
That
That's
wraps
all our
it up.
questions.
I think so.
Well, James, we truly appreciate your time. We know it's been some long days for you, so we appreciate your time, your insight. So we always want to give our guests this last little minute here to kind of plug yourself, any kind of projects or things you're working on. Where can people find you on social media or get a hold of you?
You can always find me at my golf club at Engineers Country Club, because that's my second home. Social media, I sprinkle his stuff here and there. I'm not really on it too much. Bergie Baby on Instagram. That's kind of all I use. Other than that, no projects yet. Just trying to figure out how to get through this year.
Yeah.
1 year at a time. There's no projects. I mean, just better myself every year. Play a little more golf. Every year, it's my goal. It never happens, but this is gonna be a new year. We're gonna do it differently this time. But yeah, no,
Definitely.
nothing going on.
Cool, brother. Well, once again, we appreciate your time. You'll have to, when you're down here in Florida, we'll have to link up and play some
Yeah,
G.
Florida, it's too high. You got to come up here now.
That's true. Yeah, I
It's
will.
about that
yeah.
time.
We'll have to come up there for the
That's the
summer.
time.
Man.
Yesterday was 70, and today was probably close to 60, 65.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good little temperature. Yeah, today it was kind of hot. It felt hot for March down here, but
It was 88 today.
it was warm out there.
Too hot. Well, thanks again. Thanks for having me, guys.
We truly
Absolutely.
appreciate it, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Contraband got that dope.
Sometimes I don't feel alright. New girl on my face, she said she nigga, but that's why I don't feel alright. Catch me in the good mood, I just might.
Stop talking, I'm breaking the bank, yeah.